It's time now for business, and I'm joined here by Yuka Royal. Yuka, good to have you with us. Apple's boss Tim Cook, for the first time ever appearing in a courtroom and taking the witness stand. Tell us about that.
In a federal court in California, Apple's chief executive is defending his company's policy over its App Store in a high-profile antitrust trial with Epic Games. Now, the saga started last summer with Epic's Fortnite game, which was kicked out of App Store after it introduced its own in-app payment system. The developer sued Apple, saying that its policy of forcing app providers to pay commission to the iPhone maker violated anti-competition laws. Apple's chief executive, though, this Friday told judges that threats to iPhone security and privacy required tight control on the App Store. Claire Rush has more.
Taking the witness stand for the very first time, Apple CEO Tim Cook testified Friday in an antitrust case brought by Epic Games. The developer sued Apple last year for removing Fortnite from the App Store. Fortnite, a popular video game made by Epic, was featured on the App Store for 2 years, but it was kicked off the platform after Epic introduced its own system for in-app payments. In its lawsuit, Epic alleges the iPhone maker abuses its power over developers by forcing them to use Apple's in-app payment system, which charges commissions of up to 30%.
At the heart of this question is whether or not Apple can say we're going to be the only quality control check on the apps that come through, and you always have to pay us some tax in order to get your apps or get your payments through iOS.
Since the iPhone's debut in 2007, the App Store has become a key revenue source for Apple. Since 2016, the annual revenue of its services division has more than doubled, totaling some $54 billion last year. The commissions on Fortnite alone netted the tech giant more than $100 million. Apple defends the commissions as a way to help pay for security and privacy protections. It also argues that its rates are similar to those charged by Google on its App Store, as well as by other gaming platforms such as Microsoft's Xbox. The antitrust trial comes as Apple faces growing criticism from developers. The tech giant's exclusive control over the App Store is already under investigation by regulators and lawmakers in Europe and the US.
Apple's shares dropped more than 1.3% as Tim Cook took the stand in the court there before recovering slightly. More broadly on Wall Street, the Dow and the S&P have extended their recovery from a sell-off earlier in the week. The tech-heavy Nasdaq, though, down in negative territory. European shares ended the week on a mixed note after a fairly calm trading session following a strong recovery on Thursday. Leaders from the group of 20 nations gathered in Rome to discuss how to speed up vaccinations in poorer countries that have been disproportionately affected by the coronavirus pandemic. Major drug companies also attended the summit, with Pfizer, Moderna and Johnson & Johnson committing to supply a total of 3.5 billion doses at cutthroat prices. The EU committed to donate at least 100 million doses to developing nations by the end of the year, including 30 million doses each from France and Germany. This as Europe remains divided on the idea of temporarily waiving patent protections for COVID vaccines.
The differences in the vaccination rates are staggering. Close to 1.5 billion doses of vaccines have been administered in over 180 countries worldwide. Only 0.3% of them are in low-income countries, while richer countries have administered around 85% of them. Not only are these disparities unacceptable, they are also a threat.
That was the summit's host, Italy's Prime Minister Mario Draghi, speaking at the summit. Meanwhile, finance ministers from the group of 7 rich nations wrapped up their 2-day virtual meeting, agreeing to end state funding of coal-fired power plants by the end of this year. The ministers said new investments into coal power must stop now in order to achieve the goal set by the Paris Accord. The G7 countries are home to major car and plane makers, and the group further agreed to accelerate the shift away from fossil fuels in the transport industry within a decade. Now, this weekend is going to be a busy one for shops, cinemas and museums that have just reopened here in France after months of closure. President Emmanuel Macron took this opportunity to launch his programme to fund cultural activities for young people nationwide. The smartphone-based app called Culture Pass gives all French youths aged 18 a bundle of credits worth €300 to buy books, theatre tickets or subscribe to some online entertainment services like Deezer. Netflix and Amazon, however, are not included. The scheme hasn't been without controversy and the bonus was reduced from €500 initially planned. The scheme will be expanded, though, to some younger teens with a smaller amount. Let's take a listen to the president.
Our nation chose to massively support the cultural sector. A total of €11 billion were invested to support these activities, to help people working in the sector, as well as the venues that had to close throughout this whole period because of the pandemic.
That was the French president visiting a cinema in the country.
You have young children, Yuka. Are they enjoying the scheme?
Well, they're not old enough to qualify yet.
Oh, okay. All right. Next time. Perhaps.
Next time.
Thank you very much for that business update.